My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I want to speak a little bit about this one person. She poses as an investigative journalist, and maybe she does do a little bit of investigation. I don't know. But her name is Lauren McGAUGHY. Lauren, L-A-U-R-E-N, McGAUGHY, I think is how you say her last name, M-C-G-A-U-G-H-Y. Now, Lauren originally comes from Los Angeles. She's a Los Angeles native. She attended Georgetown University, where she graduated cum laude with a degree in East Asian and Islamic Studies. She received her MA in Chinese Studies at UCLA. You would think, boy, this is a very educated, qualified person. She's got a lot of credentials behind her. She went to Georgetown University. She's got a master's degree, evidently from UCLA. Lauren, I believe, is a very hardcore, left-wing, Democrat feminist, LGBTQ political hack who masquerades as an investigative journalist trying to disguise her real agenda. If you look at Lauren's, some of the articles that Lauren has done, she focuses, yes, she says she focuses on government transparency and stuff like that, and she also focuses on LGBTQ issues. In fact, and I do have her card right here, because after the debate was done, the Republican debate was done, I spoke for a few brief moments about Jeff Younger and his situation with James Younger, how there was a judge, an activist judge, Mary Brown, who will not let him see his son except under supervised visitation because Jeff does not want to see his son transition. His son is a boy. His ex-wife, Ann Georgelis, who is a pediatrician, is forcing this transgender surgery, or is forcing this transgender protocol upon him. In the state of Texas, and the judge, the activist judge, Mary Brown, is actually acting at the request of the mother, is not stopping this thing. Even though it's been declared child abuse, this is what is being permitted to take place. My name's Jeff Morgan. I'm actually not running. I am representing Jeff Younger for House District 63. People know of Jeff because there is a judge in Dallas, Mary Brown, who has actually forbidden him from being with his son without supervised visitation because he will not agree to let his wife, his ex-wife, transition the son. This was a Republican priority. If you are sick and tired of our Republican Party taking a look at our priorities and not passing them, vote for Jeff Younger for Texas, House District 63. Anyway, after I spoke on Jeff's behalf, Lauren approached me and wanted to know if she could reach out to Jeff Younger, if Jeff would maybe do an interview with her. So I said, you know, the one thing we are concerned about is, will you be fair in the interview? Because many of these people, she introduced herself to me. She told me that she talked about government affairs, and she told me that she talked about the LGBTQ issue, the gender issues, and how they relate to public policy, something along those lines. So I said, I just want to make sure, our big concern is that you will not be fair. And when I said that to her, it was almost like you could see on her face like, oh crap, somebody's going to actually, maybe he knows who I am. Maybe he understands that I'm not really always fair. Maybe he understands that I have an agenda. And nevertheless, she gave me her card, and just so that you can see that it was very real, this is from the Dallas Morning News. This is her card right here. Her name is Lauren once again. She gave me her card, and she wanted Mr. Younger to contact her. So I sent Mr. Younger the information either that night or the next day. He checked out her Twitter feed and a couple of things like that. And yes, she is very much of a hardcore left-wing transgender activist. At least it would appear based on her posts. In fact, if you look at her Facebook, she even has a Facebook picture. It was 15 years ago. This, I think, was from 2018 or something like that. We've gotten rid of sodomy laws as of 15 years. This is the 15th year anniversary. So here she is, a person who believes that two men having anal sex with each other, that's a very good thing. That's her orientation. That's her agenda. Well, Lauren, I believe, and I cannot prove this, but I believe that as the political hack that I think she is, I have to wonder whether she is being paid by Colin Allred or his campaign or somebody associated with his campaign to put out an article against one of Colin Allred's potential competitors. And the reason I say this is because 4 years ago when Colin Allred first ran, Colin Allred made a lot of lying attacks. Colin Allred knew who I was personally because I called him out on that. Colin Allred, even though he's my representative, would not even talk to me. In fact, he said he didn't want to talk to me. He had guys blocking my access to him. There was a lady who came running to his rescue to keep me from talking with him. I have videotape of him, a photo of videotaping him in the parking lot when he's running away because Colin Allred was exposed as a liar. And I believe, and I cannot prove this, but I believe that possibly Lauren McGAUGHY was hired for the same purpose, to find a way, how can we keep Colin Allred in power? See, last time when Colin Allred first ran, he ran against Pete Sessions. Pete Sessions was considered quite an influential person in Congress. There were a lot of outside money coming in to help Colin Allred win. He had, I believe, $5.8 million. I think Pete had about $1 million less than that. Some of it came in at the end. But Colin Allred was using all sorts of dirty tricks, and he had a reporter from the East Coast who also tried to use some dirty tricks. I put on an interview with Pete Sessions. I put down a very narrow focus on it, and they intentionally, knowingly, willingly took it out of context to try to portray Pete Sessions as something that he wasn't. So here's what we have right now by this great investigative journalist, this LGBTQ activist sympathizer who is masquerading, in my opinion, as an investigative reporter. Here's what she published. It was either yesterday or the day before. She is putting a hit piece, I believe, on Brad Namdar, who was one of the candidates who is running in the primary, the Republican primary, running against Colin Allred. Now, first off, for the Republican primary, there are 6 candidates. We've got 6 great individuals running. Pete Sessions, the former congressman, has endorsed Brad Namdar. The Dallas Morning News editorial board endorsed Brad Namdar. I talked with Brad maybe a year ago, even before he announced, and he said, you know, as far as the people he was concerned, he was probably the biggest threat to Colin Allred from what he had heard. So I don't know. I don't know all the inside stuff, but I do know that this type of a dirty, stinking, rotten, cheap trick done by the Colin Allred campaign is not something that we have not seen in the past. Anyway, so, and by the way, McGAUGHY, she's a winner of the 2020 Headliners Foundation Silver Award for Enterprise and Innovation. She's a 2-time winner of an Association of LGBTQ Journalists Excellence Award. You know, so, and again, she focuses on LGBTQ issues. If you look at some of the stuff that she's written, and I can post where you can find her. She has her own website, laurenmcgaughy.com. You can see some of the issues that she's wrote about. You'll see that she very much is promoting the LGBTQ agenda, claiming to be an investigative journalist. Anyway, in this article that she wrote, she claimed that Brad Namdar, and Brad is, again, he's recently married. He's running for Congress against Colin Allred. He apparently is a threat of some sort to Colin Allred should he win the election. This hit piece came out. I cannot verify whether any of this stuff ever took place. In fact, she can't verify it either because she lists unnamed sources. Unnamed sources who are afraid to speak for fear of retaliation. This smells, this reeks of a Colin Allred trick. This is exactly what took place in the past. Now, Colin would say, well, I didn't do it. But his surrogates have hired somebody, I believe, and I can't prove this, to put out a story like this. So here it is. This is Lauren's great investigative journalism. A woman who works as a professional escort. When you say professional escort, think prostitute. And as Lauren actually rightly says, prostitution is illegal in Texas. And so if Lauren wants to be honest about this stuff, she should be reporting the prostitute to the authorities, because the lady says, I'm a professional escort. Professional escort is nothing other than prostitute. Prostitution is illegal, but we're going to use a different term so it doesn't sound like I'm a prostitute. I'm a professional escort. I sell myself to the highest bidder, and I will escort him to whatever, and then perform certain other functions afterwards, which maybe he's paying for my dinner, maybe he's paying for me to escort him, and maybe the sex is free. So maybe that's a technical way that it's not prostitution, but that's what it is. Anyway, she writes that Brad Namdar solicited sex from her. She said that she voluntarily, oh, and by the way, she said she voluntarily sells her body for sex, so that is the definition of prostitution. And I'm wondering if Lauren, in her great integrity as an investigative journalist, would actually report this to the police. hey, by the way, interview this person. I've protected her name publicly because she's afraid of retaliation. But police officer, you need to know she commits crimes on a regular basis, and she needs to be picked up and busted for prostitution. She offers sexual services on multiple websites. The Dallas Morning News, or the Dallas News, is not naming her because she fears retaliation from Namdar. Now, if you've seen Brad is shorter than I am. He's maybe, I don't know, 5'6", 5'5", 5'6", something like that. He's a couple inches smaller than I am. But somehow they fear retaliation, either from Mr. Namdar or from some of his friends, perhaps. Her boyfriend also, by the way, said that these things took place, that the escort, the prostitute is referring to. But he also was not named because he too, this great boyfriend, this strong boyfriend, fears retaliation as well. So we have two unnamed sources making an allegation that Lauren McGAUGHY will take up and run with. No corroboration. Well, it looks like maybe this could be the case, but she's going to run with the story. And she also sent the story out to different people as if it were fact that got printed in the Dallas Morning News. This is, again, this smells like Colin Allred's tactics. Completely. 100%. That somebody in his campaign, and I'm not saying it's Colin, I don't know. Colin ran away from me, but his campaign people protect him. I think they try to keep him like, let's keep Colin's hands clean while we engage in all of these dirty tricks. And here is the prostitute's words. This man made me feel like I was nothing, the woman told the News in one of several interviews. He needs to be accountable for his actions. Well, all I would say once again, if he needs to be accountable for his actions, which we don't even know took place, she, who has confessed to actions that are literally illegal, should also be accountable for her actions. So maybe she will turn herself into the authorities. Maybe Lauren will turn her into the authorities. With that kind of platform, and that's as a political person, you cannot treat people that way. What's done in the dark always comes out to the light. But I found it was very interesting that she says, this man made me feel like I was nothing. You're selling your body for sex? What type of self-esteem do you have for that? The News also uncovered allegations. Again, here it comes. The allegations. Now remember, in our media today, if you have an allegation, it's as good as a fact. You will be crucified based on an allegation. Allegations that, except if, and I've got another story that will just show that this is a one-way street. If you are a conservative or a Republican and there's an allegation, it's being treated as fact. If you are a conservative or Republican making an allegation against somebody else, it's uncorroborated, it's nothing that's there, and I'll get to that in just a moment. The News also uncovered allegations that Namdar inappropriately touched a student when he was a teacher and coach at a Dallas high school. CPS was notified about the alleged incident. So there's an alleged incident. Supposedly CPS was notified, but local law enforcement officials said they have no records of such an incident. This sounds like Brett Kavanaugh all over again. Version 2.0. Now we're going to attack a person running against Colin Allred. Again, this smells like his fingerprints or the fingerprints of his campaign staff is all over this. They run a dirty campaign. They've run a dirty campaign in the past. This smells to me 100% like this is Colin Allred's dirty campaign trick, and that Lauren McGAUGHY may have even volunteered for this position. I don't know. All I do know is it was a guy from the East Coast, and he contacted me because he saw the video that I put out with Pete Sessions 4 years ago. He made a hit piece, which was not true, and they even got it published on The Hill and everything else. Colin Allred knew about this. Colin Allred refused to recant the story, refused to say the story is not true. Colin Allred knew for a fact that it was a lie, and yet he did nothing to distance himself from the lie. So if I tell you that Colin Allred is all over this, that's the way that I feel about it. Anyway, so now we have another allegation against Mr. Namdar that he inappropriately touched a student when he was a teacher and a coach at a Dallas high school. There are no police records whatsoever. There is merely an allegation. Now, when it comes down to Mr. Namdar, he denied all allegations. Namdar has held trainings on how to spot and fight human trafficking. This has been one of the issues that Brad has been talking about for a long time. Human trafficking. His business, he owns a small business, is enlisted in some type of businesses that fight human trafficking. I've been at events where he's moderated panels about human trafficking. He has spoken about human trafficking on when he's been campaigning. Is it possible, perhaps, that maybe there are some human traffickers out there that want to see Mr. Namdar put out of business? By the way, Mr. Namdar also was on a commission appointed by Governor Greg Abbott, some type of human trafficking commission. So is it possible, is it remotely possible that there are some human traffickers who say, man, you know what, if he gets elected, he's going to come after us. Maybe we should have a smear campaign. Maybe we should work with the Colin Allred campaign. Maybe we should see if we have a very left-wing, progressivist, LGBTQ advocate who masquerades an investigative reporter and get her on our side too. For crying out loud, I'm not going to say what I was going to say right there. Anyway, in recent weeks, she says, this is Lauren, she says, Namdar has distinguished himself in a crowded field by receiving endorsements from U.S. Representative Pete Sessions and the Dallas Morning News editorial board. Now here is what Miss Lauren says. She says, by the way, prostitution is illegal. Prostitution is illegal. So once again, I would ask Miss Lauren, have you reported this? If not, why not? Are you just a hypocrite? Are you just so much of an activist that you're going to let prostitution continue? It's flourishing under your watch, Lauren McGAUGHY. You who are this great LGBTQ activist, you are allowing, you are permitting, you are encouraging prostitution by not reporting it. This man made me feel like I was nothing, the woman told the news in one of several interviews. He needs to be accountable for his actions. And yes, so does the prostitute who's been offering her services on multiple platforms online. Anyway, the solicitation of prostitution is a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by fines and up to a year in jail for a first-time offense. Prostitution is a Class B misdemeanor in Texas, punishable by fines and up to 180 days in jail. Lauren McGAUGHY has a duty to report this illegal activity that she is aware of. She tried to report Mr. Namdar, evidently, but the police had no records. But Miss McGAUGHY ought to, if she were a person of integrity, also report the prostitute. So once again, and I want to talk a little bit further about Miss McGAUGHY in her trans LGBTQ activism. She has a degree in Middle Eastern studies, Islamic studies, I should say, Islamic studies. And I'm just wondering why Miss McGAUGHY does not talk about the abuse of women that occurs in the Muslim world. And Miss McGAUGHY, I've lived in the Muslim world. I've lived there for 5 years. I'm aware of a lot of the things that take place. Not everything, I am aware of it. And I think that if you have a degree in Islamic studies, you would know about the abuse. You would know about the incest that takes place. You would know about the sex slavery that takes place. You'd know about these things. But you won't criticize Muslims, will you? You won't criticize Muslims because they don't fit into your political agenda here to try to undermine any type of conservative values. You are a destroyer of this society. And that is why I'm very glad when I mentioned this to Mr. Younger that, you know, maybe he'd want to interview with you. I will not give her the time of day. I want nothing that is going to get clicks to her. Well, I want something that's going to get clicks to her so that people can write reviews about her activism and about her lack of integrity and about her putting out the story as if it were news based on allegations. May they be true? Anything could be true. I wasn't there one way or another, but other people confirmed that they were not true. But nevertheless, this is a story that Lauren McGAUGHY has run to try to gain some notoriety for herself and to try to push forward her cause. And by the way, Miss McGAUGHY, if you're really concerned about all of these issues, why don't you interview Ann Georgelis? Ann Georgelis is the pediatrician who used to be married to Mr. Younger. She is the pediatrician who annulled her marriage based on a fraudulent claim of fraud. She is the pediatrician who is trying to transition James socially and chemically and in other ways. Why don't you talk with her? I would love to talk with her. I'd be very willing to talk with her. Why don't you talk with her attorney, Jessica Janicek, from the Kunstfuller Law Firm, the attorney who continues to defend this barbaric practice, this practice which the Department of Family and Protective Services has called child abuse. Why don't you ask them How do you justify this type of abuse? Show some integrity, show some spine. Quit being such a political hack in your position. Why don't you talk with Julie Johnson? Julie Johnson, who is also a representative, and she's nearby as well. She and her significant others, because Julie is a lesbian, that's what she is. You know, she's part of the founding member of the LGBTQ caucus down in Austin, which is gathering more and more steam, which, by the way, is being supported by people like the Texas Trial Lawyers Association. They are just licking their chops. They know that if we can get legislation to help pass and legitimize the LGBTQ stuff, it's more money to them, because there's going to be LGBTQ divorces and child custody issues and everything else. I want to talk with Ana Maria Ramos. Ana Maria Ramos is my representative here. Ana Maria Ramos, to the best of my knowledge, was an unwed mother and an underage unwed mother. So what happened there? Did Ana Maria Ramos willingly accept sex? Was she raped? Did she report? Was it statutory rape? I mean, if she was underage, it should have been reported. Why? Ask her. Why didn't she report this stuff? And by the way, Ana Maria Ramos actually sabotages bills that are designed to help create some type of parental equality. You want to talk about gender issues? Go talk with Victoria Niave, who also is a divorce attorney. Interview her and ask her why, when you had so many people that were for equal shared parenting, why she chose to stall the bill till the end so that there was no possible way it could be passed in the session. Why don't you ask her that? Ask her why it was that a couple of terms back that she was the #1 funded candidate from the Texas Trial Lawyers Association. And she was basically, I believe, hand-chosen to take the place of Harold Dutton. Ask her that. Ask her about that. And for you, why do you celebrate sodomy on your Facebook page? 15 years ago, sodomy laws have been abolished. Really? Is sodomy healthy? If male-to-male sodomy, okay, but male-to-female sodomy, are you okay with that? I mean, if a woman cried sodomy against a man, there would be an outcry. And yet she supports sodomy, men with men. This is completely insane. Now, I said that, you know, the allegations that she talked about, unproven. No, nothing proof here. She says she has something. She has some redacted stuff. If she does, the truth can come out. But when you attack people with shadow stuff, with made-up, fabricated stuff, perhaps, we don't know, because we haven't seen the facts. That is just done nothing but to smear a person. And again, this is a Colin Allred tactic to the T. I know this guy, the way that he's operated, because I've had personal experience with one of his operatives in the past. And with Colin Allred too. This is a Colin Allred smear campaign, in my opinion, from everything that I can see. And like I said, with the Dallas Morning News, that was very interesting because, so they're publishing these allegations as if they were fact. They're destroying a person. They're trying to destroy and smear him. And yet here's what they do when it comes down to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has been peddling a conspiracy theory for weeks, suggesting that the FBI incited last year's attack on the U.S. Capitol. In this scenario, the nation's prime law enforcement agency prodded supporters of defeated President Donald Trump to ignore police lines, assault officers, smash through windows, turn flagpoles into spears, invaded the Senate chamber, and threatened the Vice President and House Speaker. No evidence has surfaced for this explosive theory, and the purported motives for such a conspiracy are murky. So once again, if you are a conservative Republican and you float a theory and there are no facts to support it, all of a sudden there's no facts to support this explosive theory. The purported motives for such a conspiracy are murky. And yet when you have a Democratic hack, investigative journalist, LGBT activists, who I believe may be doing the exact same thing as a reporter for the Dallas Morning News, she's given front page and a big write-up about this. This is the double standard that the Dallas News holds, and that's why, again, why Mr. Younger did not give her an interview and why Jeff Younger did not even turn in a survey to the Dallas Morning News, because the Dallas Morning News is also, in many respects, many regards, a left-wing propaganda rag as well. Anyway, that's it, talking about Lauren McGAUGHY. I'm going to provide her information. I'm going to provide links to her website. With regard to Brad Namdar, I think that if this is all designed to be true, we need to have a public retraction, a very public retraction on page 1. not a retraction that's this big somewhere hidden and buried in the newspaper. And by the way, for all of these people that she wrote to inform them about the article, I think that she should also go and retract that as well. If she has the proof, let it come out, let it play out. But this, again, this stinks. It smells like a dirty Democratic tactic. I've seen this many, many times, and it's time to call this stuff out and to fight back against this. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks.